Welcome to More Than Renovating, a renovate and real estate podcast. Our founder, Belinda Smith, talks to industry experts to provide you with the knowledge and information you need to make renovating for love and profit your reality. Belinda will also chat to some of her Renovation Mastery members who are just everyday people doing extraordinary things, following their passions in the renovation and property space. So, let's jump straight into the episode. Enjoy.
Yeah, hi everyone. Welcome to this episode of Renovate and Real Estate's podcast, More Than Renovating. And today I have with me Belinda Mangroo. Good morning, Belinda.
Hi. Hi, Belinda.
Belinda works with me as one of my elite students, one of my higher level students. And Belinda has this beautiful story of where she's come from to where she's heading, big hopes and dreams in the renovation space. And we'll probably unpack that a little bit as we go through this morning. But start, Belinda, with sharing with everyone, what is your background? What do you do for a day job? And tell us a little bit about your family.
Oh, okay. So as my day job, I tend to do the school run. I look at lots of Pinterest pictures. I drool over things. I look at my house and all the jobs I want to be doing and thinking, right, I can do it this way, I can do it that way. And then I keep a keen eye on the property market and all of that. But that job has only been the last 4 years or so. So prior to that, I had a proper job as a research scientist. So I worked in agricultural biotech, and that started. So I started out doing my Bachelor of Science at the University of Sydney here in Australia, of course, and then went on to do my PhD in Canberra. Started my career at CSIRO, and then launched over to the UK to work with some pretty amazing laboratories there, and hated most of it. And but met my husband there. And ended up there for about 16 years, and I did enjoy some parts of my job, and I loved the science, and I loved the diverse community that I worked in. You know, it's a very international career to be in, and then gradually, as funding gets tight and family demands were high, and then I looked at in academia traditionally didn't pay so well, but it had good security and good packages, and that was being eroded away, but we still had the bad pay. So I'm like, no, I can do a lot more with my time here to help my family. So that's what I decided to do, and move back to Australia in the process.
Yeah, I'm with you. One of the biggest myths is that you finish school, you go to university, and because you have a university degree, you end up in a high-paying career. And that's certainly my kids' example, that just wasn't the case. That really wasn't the case. They had to fight for every dollar that they were paid, and they started as if they were straight from high school, like back in our day. It's been a very interesting shift. So from research scientist to renovator, what drew you?
Well, I think a couple of little it's like little drops in the ocean, seeds being sown in your life over time. You know, when I first graduated from my PhD, got my first job, there was a little bit of a boom being predicted in Canberra where I was staying, and all my friends started buying property, and these were people that were traditionally in contracted work, so they rarely bought property. Scientists are notoriously mobile and poor. So they move around, they never buy something, so they never get that wonderful capital growth that you can never save to keep up with, things like that. And I saw my friends purchasing properties, and I thought, I think they're onto a good thing here. I didn't understand anything about it. I think I was about 25 or something, had paid no attention. I should have been old enough, but I was an academic. I had my head buried. And then I thought, oh no, I can do this, but I had no money. I was still paying off my HECS debt, and I had a boyfriend that my family didn't like. So I asked my mum if she'd help me go guarantor to invest in a house, and she's like, there's no way I'm doing that if you're the boyfriend around. Like, oh. So anyway, it didn't happen, and then I moved to England, and then the boyfriend left. So win-win.
Got rid of him.
Yeah.
What did you do in England in relation to property?
So that's the thing. I basically married into property originally. So my husband, and that was the big key moment. It was seeing my husband's stability. So he had an IT job with a very large company in the UK that's quite famous and a lot of security. And so very early on, when he was young, about the age I was looking, he purchased a house on his parents' advice. They said, "You've got to purchase a house." And he's like, "Oh, I'm just going out drinking beers and having kebabs at midnight," that type of thing.
Like every other young person.
Yeah, that's right. And so he said, "I just woke up one day and I thought, no, I think I've got to do this." And he did that. And then we met and we got together, and he was also very savvy about how he did it. He rented out his 2 rooms to mates. So he was almost didn't pay any mortgage by the time he rented out those rooms. It was pretty dumpy, and he lived in it pretty dumpy, a house of three blokes,
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, then I moved in, and gradually the property evolved. Yeah, the property evolved. So I suppose you could call it nesting. Yeah. But we did some small things. It was all wallpaper. We got all the wallpaper off, and we gradually did lots of things there. And we completely flattened the entire back garden and re-landscaped the whole back garden ourselves, every bit ourselves. So I did all the design for that. We laid all the Indian stone French pattern tiles, French provincial pattern tiles, and garden beds and planting and turf. The lot we did ourselves. And a whole new kitchen as well, which involved some wall removal, new flooring throughout, all that sort of thing. And I saw that, and we had to move because there were a lot of changes at my work, and we got relocated. And I realised that work had been crucial in helping us move forward. Because,
first question, how did you intuitively know what changes to make to that property? Or was it in poor condition, so everywhere you looked, something needed freshening up?
Yeah, everywhere you looked, something needed freshening up. I mean, it was like a student rental, really. Yeah. And it was very deep 1980s colours. So a lot of forest green with dark jarrah coloured timbers and things like that. It really didn't work. It had a kitchen that was falling apart and had this is what I often have to deal with, is the husband's tastes.
Yeah, yes.
God bless him. So the original
I'll never listen to this.
I'm sure some of your students are aware. So if you have these 1980s kitchen doors that have like a timber effect, timber look kind of laminate, the really original laminate that had no bearing on real timber.
Yes.
And they were kind of worn out and a bit of a yucky green colour.
Yes, I know exactly the ones you're talking about.
So before I moved in with Alan, when I had first met him and he said, "Oh, I'm going to clean up the kitchen. I'm going to do some great work on the kitchen and make it nicer." I think he thought that he was really doing well, So I said, "Okay, this is exciting." So I went up and visited for the weekend or what have you. And he had bought a pack of paint where you paint the laminate, the background colour, and then you have a top colour with a grooved tool that made it look like the fake timber that he was painting over.
Like for like, just a little bit of a freshen up.
Like for like, but a colour freshen up. And we were together not that long by then, so I don't think I had it in my heart to say, really.
There's a point where you say, "Okay, I love you, honey, but from now on, I'm not going to trust you with any choices in relation to the house. My husband comes out every morning still. He'll kill me." This is, everybody, don't tell our husbands this episode's up. My husband comes out every morning and he says, "Do I match?" And what he means is, do my shorts match my shirt? And every time he says it, every day I say, "This is why you don't go and pick our tiles." It's just a gentle reminder for all of us to play to our strengths.
Yes,
And colour selection is not his strength either.
I think it is. But the wonderful thing about my husband, and this is why it's great, he's extremely handy. Even though he's a clever little IT spot, he can do everything. He's built the kitchens and laundries, and we did the tiling together, and he can fix loads of stuff. So that's great. And the great thing as well for us and for any kind of partnership really is that we do work as a team.
Yeah.
So that's super.
So do we. And he's willing. So is my husband. And it makes such a difference because you feel like you can accomplish a lot together, and you've got company while you do things, particularly things that are a little bit like painting, where you need conversation or music or something while you're there for days. So that's
right.
Good. All right. So that you kind of recognise that renovation was a way to climb the property ladder, or at least make a place saleable. So did that sell fairly quickly?
It sold very quickly. The UK property market is difficult. The first sale we had some fraud going on, so that delayed us for 2 months. But that sold within the first 2 days to that fraudulent person, but then it resold within 2 days again. And that was in a stagnant market.
And so what was your next move?
So the next move was, and this was part of why the relocation with my work was great, because I could recognise the opportunity, because we were in a fairly low value part of the UK at the time, and the move was fully paid for, and including stamp duty.
Yeah, yes.
And and it was to a very in-demand part of the UK. So it was financially a really good move for us. And I knew that provided we get into that town, that the type of property we had just had to have good bones, really. And so we brought that up.
So you could springboard off a property that was finished and was selling well into an older property, but in a better part of town where you wanted to live more. Yes. That's exactly what we've always done. Same. Okay. So, and then you moved to Australia?
Yes, well, in that property that we moved to, I did a big renovation where I opened up the whole kitchen, replaced the kitchen, new flooring throughout, proper functional laundry. People love functional laundries, not these ones that just have one little sink in the corner.
Yeah.
And then we got ready to move to Australia. And at the time, and this was the big thing that got me really involved in property, because at that point it was always just looking at our own personal property and our own personal circumstances. But when we moved to Australia, the exchange rate was really poor for us.
Right.
And the market was at what people at the time were calling a peak, and everyone was going crazy because it was so expensive. And that was 2017. Yeah. So the pound to dollars was poor. The market was really high. I didn't know at the time that the move was the right thing for us as a family. So basically when we moved, we decided we're not going to sell our UK house, and we weren't going to buy here yet. And so in that process, I did a lot of education, a lot of learning about what's involved in property, to understand really what we needed to do to buy the right sort of thing here, because we were very nervous about the cost of property in Sydney, because I'd never bought a house in Sydney previously.
Yeah.
Very nervous about it and how best to go about it, and did a lot of property courses, some good, some not so good. And I think the renovation really, really clicked with me because of the experience that I'd seen with how not only how our properties helped us, but how the properties that were not finished to an equal standard, how they were not selling as easily, and how they had a whole lot of difficulties, either from a maintenance perspective. To me, maintenance is always number one. Maintenance of function is still number one.
Yeah.
And number two is style and living the dream.
People underestimate how much you can change a space by paint, by modernising floors, by just ripping out old and replacing with new. And a perfect example of that was when you mentioned that place in England with the dark coloured walls and the dark woods, and those that can make you feel very, very closed in. And so livability and family comfort and feeling proud of your home is something that can be really easily achieved with renovation. And so what do you do, Belinda, to keep up with the latest looks and colours and designs and tiles and all that kind of stuff?
Well, these days, I mean, the internet is brilliant, of course.
Yeah.
It would have been different, you know, God, only 10 years ago, to be honest. Gosh, how the world has changed. And I think I love Pinterest. Pinterest is my favourite, actually. I love Pinterest. I have a few key subscriptions to magazines, and I always love to go to trade shows, drop into quality furniture and homewares stores, and keep an eye on the socials, really, because the thing in mind with the socials is that a lot of what's the word for people who are on socials that are being paid? Influencers. That's the word I'm after.
Yeah.
A lot of influencers are really promoted to be pushing the latest product. And so that's really good. You know, I'm not such a big fan of following vacant influencers. It's not them that I'm interested in.
The word vacant is perfect.
All credit, but it's not them that I'm interested in. It's more about what it is that they're able to kind of see that's coming onto the market, and that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. And right at the beginning of this, I said, what do you spend a lot of your day doing? And you said it is just that, doing the research. I also know now that you're reaching out to clients and you're talking to clients, or rather they're reaching out to you. So tell me about where you think this renovation business of yours, what it looks like, and what kind of deals you would like to be doing as this evolves.
Well, evolve is probably the key word, because when I started out with all this renovation, say first it was for our own home, and then second it was the whole concept of manufacturing growth with a strategic purchasing the right type of property from an investment point of view. And then I thought, I could see the limitations of operating on my own, partly because I love working with people. And I think it's boring being in your own bubble. It's nice to feed off people, and you get that kind of you get that zhuzh going on to really get the excitement in a project. I think when you can feed off each other and discuss ideas and get different inputs. So I really wanted to work together with people doing more investment, joint ventures and things like that. And when I considered what I needed to be doing to get those joint ventures together, I realised that process can still, certainly at the beginning, can still be quite slow to actually get moving, getting everyone together, getting all your legals done, getting all the finance from all the partners and what have you. And so I really liked the idea of helping ordinary people meaning not investors, not people in the property game, to get their renovations done as well. And I thought it would be really great to be able to be doing that as a proper standalone service, as opposed to just joint ventures and within the investment space. So that's where I'm offering it as well.
And I think one complements the other very, very well, particularly if you're looking at getting funding and you've got all of this continuous work. So you're doing the big renovation projects, the joint venture projects, and in between you're doing smaller things, what we call smaller jobs. At the same time, helping people out. How many people are you coming across that really have no idea, like they really just don't understand renovating? They have no idea of what to do with their homes.
It's quite amazing because my husband and I are quite handy. I think sometimes we just completely lose track of the fact that a lot of people firstly have no interest. Why should they? Why should everyone have an interest in renovating?
True.
It's a lot of decisions. It can be stressful to some people. It's it's a lot of work, really. It's a lot of work, and there can be risks involved as well. So a lot of people are just flat out not interested. And then others, they're interested, but they really don't know where to start. So a classic example is when we first purchased the current house we're living in, we're gradually doing a renovation here as a secondary to setting my other work up. As usual, a builder's own house is a disaster. But
I do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's trying to get all of this done, but all my other client work is prioritised at the moment.
Yeah.
And my neighbour came along and saw us doing our garage floor. So prior to moving in, we wanted to make sure that we had a really good epoxy floor on our garage, because we knew that's where we have a lot of work. I have a lot of my tools and my equipment and things stored. We have camping gear, the whole lot. We actually wanted to use the garage for a car.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing thing in itself these days.
Yeah.
And so we were doing the epoxy floor ourselves, and our neighbour was just standing there. He'd never met us, and he's like, how did you know what to do? And he said, oh, and I said, well, I'm a renovator as a profession now. I'm a renovation consultant. This is the type of work I do. He goes, oh, okay, that makes sense then. Like, well, unless you're focused on it, Bunnings has thousands of products. You can walk in there and see them all on the shelf, but unless you're interested in what you're going to use them for, it's meaningless to a lot of people.
Oh, and that in itself is overwhelming for a lot of people. And there are so many layers and so many intricacies with renovating. And I love the way that you started with your garage floor. Mind you, a lot of people don't even think about it, but you might as well do it while it's empty and you have the opportunity. Therefore, you can set it up really beautifully when the floor's done. And a lot of people move in and throw everything around and then say, oh, now I've got to move everything out again, or they never get to it because they didn't take advantage of the opportunity they had when it was much easier. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to learn and a lot of stuff to do, and that is why you're busy right now. That is why you are doing client briefs and people are reaching out. And so what kind of special skills do you think you bring, Belinda? This is a hard question for you to answer because I know how humble you are. So off we go.
I think I'm like a duck. I was going to say a swan, but I don't think I'll give myself that much grace. No,
Be a swan. Be a swan.
A duck. I like to think that I can be the one that's calm on the surface and like pedaling crazily under the water. I found when I did my first larger project, I did a flip in orange. When I did my first larger project, I was genuinely surprised at how little I was stressed.
Yeah.
And to me, that was one of the big things that said, I think this renovating game really is for me, because I did genuinely enjoy it. And a lot of people don't have that, and I've been supporting my brother as kind of a pseudo client, although, I think I'm getting close to billing him.
Freebies.
Yeah, that's right.
And I know you've done lots of changes to your mum's place as well. So people lean on you for advice.
And I think seeing them both. So he's a young guy who is very busy. He works very hard with his hands. He's super tired in the evening and he's super tired on the weekend. That's when he's not working overtime on the weekend. And he can't make decisions. And then my mum, who just gets complete overwhelm and the decisions come over her like a fog and she can't see clearly to figure out what needs to be done next at all. And there are a lot of people in that position. And you can't expect them to be able to take on the hundreds of decisions that there may be in a renovation.
One of the jobs that I was actually called to was exactly that scenario, Belinda. The kids called me and said, you need to help mum and dad with their renovation because they will drive us absolutely crazy. Mum really struggles to make a decision and we don't know how to guide her. And I loved working with her. I thought she was great. She took a while to make a decision, but so then I worked with her by presenting her with not like a whole room full of choice. I did a lot of the working out and said, okay, here's 3 or 4 tiles, choose from these, because I knew they worked really well together. And when you're working with people, you have the experience to move them through their renovation without them suffering any angst or worry and making all of that decision making simple for them.
Exactly.
How do you know how far to take a renovation, like how much to spend? We were discussing a client project earlier this morning. So
yes, that's right. I mean, and this is the thing. It's not just a matter of the numbers, you know, and that's where my science comes in. I'm trained to see the holes in things.
Yeah.
You know, when I did science, you would do your experiment, and the first question I'd be was, why would they not publish this? Why will my peers say this is rubbish? We're not publishing it. And you have to find, almost like finding the problems, risk assessing first, and seeing where you go from there. And therefore, it's not a matter of just looking at the house and what someone wants. You've got to consider, you know, as the word I love is holistic. You've got to consider this holistic view of what's going on. What are their circumstances? What do they need? How much do they actually have to spend? How much should be spent? Yes. And how much could we spend? They're different numbers.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. And really you need to then fit within that frame. So you can look at all these amazing, such stunning renovations, you know, what they show on the block and what they do on this and what they have on all these programs and Insta pages and all the promotions from the large tile companies and things like that. And if you want to pay $700 a square metre for a tile, I'd love to too, any day of the week. Give me the $700 square metre tile and I will find somewhere for them.
Which is what they do on those shows, right? So we all know they don't pay full price for their stuff.
That's right. That's right. But it's about trying to get that look within what's required. And what's required is not only just a look, it's also the functionality, which is key.
Agree. And I know you know how to do that very, very well. And I still laugh at you creating the most beautiful loo I've ever seen. You did a great renovation, but the toilet, I'm like, far out, this is gorgeous.
It was almost an outhouse when I started. It was an asbestos-riddled, windy city in there.
Yeah.
And I mean windy as in the breeze.
You did the holes in the walls. It was gorgeous. And you know what? You did that renovation and it was so perfect for the demographic, like for the area that it was in. It had this touch of modern and this character still to it. It had a warmth to it. It was modern colours, beautiful whites. Your kitchen choices were amazing. And you have a real knack for this. And I think you probably take it for granted. And it is, I actually boil it down to your logical intelligence when you're putting work together, and you do have this ability to break things down very systematically into, I'm going to do this first and this has got to come second and this has got to come third, and you just work so well and you get things done. I've thrown a lot at you and your clients have thrown a lot at you, and you just have the ability to work through things just as you described. You look so calm. I don't know what your legs are doing under the water. But you do look calm above the surface, and that's really important when somebody's working with you, to have somebody that they can speak to, that they know is on top of it all, has the ability to get through things bit by bit, who's not going to flip out and who's going to make all the right choices.
That's right. I mean, that's something that I've definitely seen being involved in some new build projects.
Yeah.
Not doing the project myself, but being involved in communities doing that with project builders and things, is that a lot of the homeowners are just so tense. They're so tense, and the tiniest thing, they get themselves very worked up, and they don't know if what they're upset about is reasonable or not reasonable. What should they do about it? How should they approach it? And just looking at that alone, you're like, it's great to be able to have that person in the middle to liaise with the builders or liaise with the site people or the suppliers or whoever it is, and figure out what the solution is, and if it's even a problem. Sometimes people really get themselves in a tiz for things that are, everyone's human, people building are human.
Yeah.
There are allowances.
Yeah.
And compromises as well, knowing where to compromise.
Yeah, and sometimes as consultants, you and I will stand between a husband and a wife, not in an awful way, but we'll be able to create that balance and get them on to make some kind of joint decision. Because sometimes, one has very strong viewpoints about what is going to go in that room. And so it's just being able to help people through the process so that they stay
That's
married and happy.
Exactly. And their viewpoints are valid. They're all valid.
Yes.
Got to take it on board and, present it to them in a way kind of like getting them to see where their priority is as well.
Yeah, agree. What have you learned about yourself through working with clients? Another question I
don't know.
For you,
yeah.
humble Belinda. Here we go.
I think the main thing, which is not so good for me personally, is that I tend to put too much into making sure the client or the other person is satisfied and has what they need from me, and that's often to detriment to me, so I need to be very careful how I manage my own time, because I always tend to put others first.
All right, we'll talk about that next week, Linda. So that's what we'll work on next. Okay, because that's actually really important, and I see you do it. And you know what? We are really giving humans, and a lot of people are, and it's very easy to give, particularly if you like to help family and friends. If family and friends are asking all of the time, can you come around? Can you have a look at my plan? What could I do to this bathroom and all that kind of stuff? Then it is time to step into renovation consultancy and turn it into a career. And I'm glad you recognize that. Otherwise you just do stuff for friends and family nonstop.
That's right. And it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work to be doing something for someone else. There are some, you could just have a chat and glance at things, but if they genuinely want you involved and there's a time commitment, then it is a lot of work. And I have to be aware that the reason why I'm doing this, if you look at the why, the big why, the big why is for my family security. And I also love feeling that I've done a great job. And so for me, I want to be able to have that feeling that I've done a great job, know that I did a great job, but also bring some kind of security for my family. And so that requires charging people for my services. Because
agree. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's all about the energy of money, and it goes around, and we deserve it. It. So what do you think your boys think of you in this new change of career?
Oh, they're so funny. I mean, the two of them are such different personalities. So
they're good kids.
My eldest couldn't care less. My youngest is like, Mummy has a business.
It's a classic.
And it's so cute. But and then my eldest he's starting to pay a little more attention, I think, because he's curious. You'll know it. So when I'm having some of my meetings with you, he's curious. He always
he's in the background. I know he's there.
What's going on here?
I think it's amazing what you're doing, because as a research scientist, that's very stable. You know what you know, and
they used to come into the lab with me on weekends, because my science job was not necessarily always a 9 to 5. It's also a very hands-on job. People don't realise how physical it could be sometimes. It was less physical in later years once bioinformatics moved to coding, and a lot more kind of looking at DNA and genes was a lot more computational. So I was doing a lot of that in recent years. But to get all the starting material, I was out in the field. I've got a picture of my wonderful boss that I used to work with, and I was there digging up vegetables from the field while I was 7 months pregnant in the mud. Supposed to be, actually it was later than that, and I was supposed to be on maternity leave, I think, as well. So but if they're in the field and they've got to be harvested at a certain date, that's just it. And that's a bit like what the renovation's like. Things are going to have to be done when they have to be done. And so this is not a 9 to 5 job either. And that's what I like, and that's what I'm used to, because it gives flexibility for the family in some ways, as in I have some other time, but also less flexibility in that when something needs to be done, if I have to meet a supplier on site or something, then that's got to be done.
And we've talked about it too. There's flexibility with what clients you choose to take on and who you choose to work with as well. You don't have to say yes to everything. If it's hard work, like I know there's effort in everything, but if it's just going to be painful, you just say no. Say no to that client, say no to that work.
Yes.
Some freedom attached to what you're doing.
Yes, a little bit of that, definitely. And you've got to choose the right people to work with. I think because also it's something that I enjoy, I want to keep enjoying it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so moving forward, what would you like your next or your perfect renovation job to look like with somebody else in a joint venture agreement?
My perfect one would be probably a lovely bones.
Yeah.
So a house, not the novel. The novel's not good. Not that lovely bones. A great brick house with good bones, good structure, not too far from home. I mean, I'm based in the northwest of Sydney.
Yes. Needing
an uplift, and ideally to sell, or at very least to refinance, and quickest turnaround we could manage.
Yeah.
The trades and the supply issues at the moment, and the weather are of course issues that we all have to work around.
Yeah.
But that would be my perfect project.
Yeah.
But I'd also love some even shorter projects, so more cosmetic renovations of apartments and kind of that mid-density product, so townhouses and villas that we can get through quite quickly at the moment, because I think we're going to see some growth in that area, because the growth has been fairly stagnant compared to housing.
Yep.
I mean, that would be super, but also working with other investment partners on joint ventures. And you know what I love most? I love helping people that genuinely are really stuck. Yeah. And the elderly is something that I certainly love that experience with my mother. And I think I can offer quite a lot of help to people who are, looking to downsize or trying to move to other properties. A lot of years ago, their children used to have maybe only one income families. Now they're often two income families, and the children just don't have the time to help their parents anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And I know you lead with your heart, Belinda, and I think you're perfect in that role. So that being said, where can people find you on Instagram?
On Instagram, I am at Redbourn Reno. So that's Redbourn, REDBOURN. RENO. Yep, that's it.
Got it. And your website address is?
And the website address is www.redbournrenovations.com.au.
Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing about your own personal situation and your family and your kids and all that kind of stuff that I think in the property space, people put us all on a pedestal, like we can do renovations and we can do that. In the end, we're just ordinary women doing extraordinary things. How's that?
That sounds
or
good.
Are we everyday women and not ordinary? There you go.
Yeah, everyday, ordinary. I don't know.
That sounds pretty awful, doesn't it? But anyway, we're doing some cracking things, and you're doing cracking things in the reno space. And I know that you're amazing to work with. You are, for me, amazing to spend time with. You are really easygoing. You action things very, very quickly, and you're bright, and you know your renovations. So it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. And thank you for having such a wonderful group and helping me on this journey and, basically moving me onwards and upwards with a firm, I would say a firm stiletto in the boot, but you're not one of those. I think it would be a firm boot in the butt.
Yeah.
That's good too, which is always good for some of us.
What do I say? Hug, push, hug, push. That's it. Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Belinda. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Bye.